Hello and good morning, friends. Welcome to the CEC EduSec live lecture. Dear friends, I would like to tell you all that we are sharing our delight that we are running a series on general course on intellectual property rights, and so far we have conducted 11 lectures. Today it is 12th lecture in the series, and today we are going to talk on procedure for obtaining patents in India. And for this, dear friends, we have again with us in our studios Mr. Ashwini Siwal. Mr. Ashwini Siwal is Assistant Professor in Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. Dear friends, I would also like to tell you all that he keeps on visiting different countries for sharing information, for sharing knowledge through various workshops and seminars, conferences, and with the help of these EduSat lectures also, he keeps on giving us enlightenment in the area of intellectual property rights. So dear friends, without wasting any time, I would like to welcome our guest, Mr. Ashwini Siwal, and let's take the deep insight into the very topic, that is procedure for obtaining patents in India. Hello sir, welcome to the EduSat lecture.
Thank you, Gitika. Good morning, viewers. As Gitika rightly mentioned that we are going to start our 12th lecture in this lecture series relating to intellectual property. Well, today's lecture, friends, is basically on the point of procedural formalities for obtaining the patents in India. In our previous discourses, we have covered substantive requirements for obtaining patents in India. But as I mentioned in my last discourse, that the procedural formalities are equally important, are to be complied by the applicant for obtaining the patent. So it becomes very important at this juncture for all the viewers and listeners to understand as to what all are the intricacies relating to procedure, or say what are the important steps to be taken care of by the applicant for obtaining the patent. We will see the statutory provisions relating to these procedural steps for obtaining patents. Apart from that, we will be taking care of the Patent Rules 2003, and certain forms provided therein are also to be highlighted by me for the viewers, so that it becomes convenient for them to approach the patent office and seek the patent protection at their convenience. Well friends, let us see what are our today's deliverables. As I mentioned that we need to understand the importance of procedural formalities. We need to understand and peruse the provisions relating to procedural formalities. Their threadbare analysis we will do in today's discourse, and then the rules providing procedure, they would also be taken care of in my today's discourse. I mean, I will be touching upon certain rules provided under the Patent Rules 2003. Well, as far as the importance of procedural formalities are concerned, friends, see, the way substantive requirements are important for obtaining the patent, in the similar manner procedural requirements are important, because without opting the proper procedure in a neat and immaculate manner, the applicant will never be able to get the patent protection. He may fail on one or the other step if he will not comply, if he will not conform with the statutory provisions providing the procedure for obtaining the patent. So he or she needs to obey and to comply all the procedural formalities and requirements provided in the Patents Act 1970 as well as under the Patent Rule 2003, because without following these procedure, it is kind of impossible for him to get the patent protection. And the procedural formalities, as I mentioned, are equally important and good, as we have the substantive requirements to be complied by the applicant. So while following these procedural formalities, one needs to follow and comply Patents Act 1970 and the Patent Rules 2003. If he or she does not follow the Patent Rules and Patents Act 1970 and the procedure provided therein, it will be kind of difficult for him or her to get the patent. Let us see what are the different steps to be taken care of and to be considered by the patent applicant for obtaining the patent. When it comes to the steps to file patent, friends, the very first step, or what I am trying to say, see, there would be certain steps to finally fetch the patent. For that, one needs to see many things. he or she needs to inquire whether he or she is eligible to obtain the patent or not. He or she needs to inquire where to file the patent protection. He or she needs to inquire how to follow the application, how to file the form, how to complete the requirements for obtaining the patent. And then the most important aspect of steps to be taken by the person for filing the patent, when to file the patent. It is very important when the person is thinking of filing the patent. Well, for our convenience readers, I have bifurcated this discourse or these steps for filing the patent into four broad heads. The one is who can file, the second is where to file, the third is how to file, and the fourth part would be when to file. Well friends, I would like to first of all discuss the last part, when to file, because as I mentioned that the when to file and the timing of filing the patent is very important, is one of the crucial aspects of procedure for obtaining the patent. See, ideally it is said and it is advised by the patent attorneys to their clients seeking the patent protection that they should file the patent the moment they conceive any idea into their mind, when they deem and believe that they will be able to materialize this idea or deliver the idea finally within 12 months of time period. Well friends, this 12 months of time period is provided to these applicants for the filing of the complete specification with the application, because initially when the person files the application, he files it with the provisional specification. His form for the patent obtainment is accompanied by specifications wherein he needs to disclose the best method known to him of the working of the invention and some other information he procures to the patent office. When he files the application initially, he is not supposed to file with the complete specification, because he is allowed to file it with the provisional specification wherein he can tell provisional idea or he can claim his provisional patent invention, patent protection may be not completely done by him or materialized by him. So it is better to file the patent application the moment the person conceives the idea and believes that he will be able to make it out, complete it out, or materialize it, execute it within 12 months of time. Because after the 12 months of time, if he fails to file the complete specification wherein he is supposed to file all the intricate information, subtle information relating to the invention, relating to his claim. So if he fails to do that, his application will be deemed to have been abandoned, as if he never filed the application, and he may be not getting any kind of a benefit, I mean in the terms of priority or something like that. So it's better to file it as soon as possible. It's better to file it without consulting with the colleagues, without consulting with the fellow researchers and scientists, because they may take advantage of it and they may file on their own without letting you know, without involving you in that particular application. So it's better to keep it undisclosed with you till the time you file it. The moment you file the application with the provisional specification, you get the priority over other applicants, other inventors, other researchers of the same discipline. All over the world you will be given the priority, so that nobody can surpass you illegitimately in an unauthorized manner. So it's better to file it as soon as possible, the day you believe that you have conceived an idea which is workable to your understanding and in a position to get the patent protection and falls under the subject matter criteria of the Patents Act 1970. I mean, is not expressly excluded by section 3 and 4, should be something which is beyond section 3 and 4. Well, friends, let us come to the first step, who can file the patent protection. There are certain provisions to be perused, to be comprehended by the person seeking the patent protection, to know whether he or she is eligible or not. Because if he will not inquire on this front whether he is eligible or not for the filing of the patent, he may be denied the patent protection or refuse the patent protection with the reasoning provided by the patent office that he is not the eligible person entitled to file the patent protection. So first of all, let us see who all falls under the list of filing the patent protection. Section 6 we will refer along with the section 134 and 135. Well friends, as shown in the slide, I will not be mentioning or referring to section 134 and 135 because they are for the international filing. For that I will tell you in a passing remark that there is a procedure provided for filing the patent application internationally by just mentioning the names of the countries where you are seeking the patent protection along with the requisite fee paid by you accordingly. Well, if you see the slide, section 6 and form 1, these two things are very important to my understanding. Section 6 and form 1, they are to be taken together to understand or to analyze the provision to understand who is eligible to file the patent protection. Well friends, after perusing section 6, it comes out that these are the following persons, they are eligible and entitled to file the patent. An application for a patent for an invention may be made by any of the following persons, either alone or jointly with any other person. So one thing that is pretty clear from this reading, that applicant himself can file the patent application alone or jointly. I mean, two individuals or more than two can also file the patent application if they seeks to do so. But who are entitled? The list is as follows: the true and first inventor can file the patent application. Then the assignee of the true and first inventor can file the patent application. And the third in this row is the legal representative of the deceased true and first inventor or his or her assignee can file the patent application. Well friends, from the prima facie reading, it seems that these are the three people who can file the patent application. But the list gets expanded if we peruse this provision, section 6 I mean, properly, because it reads that the true and first inventor can file the patent. One individual who has been categorically provided to file the patent application. Another one, the assignee of the true and first inventor. If I assign my invention to somebody, it means he is eligible to file the patent application on my behalf, as suggested and clear by this reading of section 6. And the third person who is eligible and entitled to file the patent is the legal representative of the deceased, who is a true and first inventor. LR of the true and first inventor, who is no more, I mean one who is an inventor, he is not available, but on his behalf the LR, and the definition of the LR has been provided here. LR here means a person who represents the estate of the deceased, or who can be said to represent the estate of the deceased immediately before the death of the deceased. So LR, assignee and the true and first inventor, they are all eligible to file the patent protection. If you see the last part of section 6, it says even the LR of the assignee is eligible. It is pretty clear from this reading that even the assignee of the LR, suppose I am the true and first inventor and I die, then my legal representatives will be eligible to file the patent application. If my legal representatives assigns that particular invention to somebody, that assignee is also eligible for filing the patent application. Notwithstanding that the true and first inventor is not alive, he has died, still the assignee of the legal representatives are allowed to file the patent application. Well friends, section 6 is quite clear in categorizing these three people who are eligible to file the patent: true and first inventor, and the definition for the same is provided under section 2, which is a definitional clause of the Patents Act 1970. Then the assignee of the true and first inventor and the LR of the deceased true and first inventor, as well as LR of the assignee of the LR. They can file the patent application or has been made eligible to file the patent application. Well friends, if you have a look at this slide, section 6 is reproduced here, wherein I have demarcated the categories or the people entitled to file the patent application. It reads that the true and first inventor can file the invention, the assignee can do so, the legal representative can do so. As I said that the definitions for same are provided under the section 2, which is a definitional clause. Under the definitional clause, true and first inventor means a person who has not been excluded by this definition provided therein under section 2. Section 2's definition of true and first inventor is not positively worded definition. It's a negatively worded definition, and it reads the person who is an importer of something, a person who is an importer of some technology from some other nation will never be deemed as a true and first inventor. Another category of persons that excludes from the purview to be called true and first inventor are the persons in receipt of some information about some technology from some source. If we exemplify it, if I receive some information about some technology from Germany, I will never be called a true and first inventor only because of the reason that I am in a receipt of some communication or a information about the technology or invention. I need to be true and first inventor. I mean, these categories of persons are excluded to be called true and first inventor. So, if we see this definition, as I said, that it is a negatively worded definition, it excludes two people to be called true and first inventor, one importer and the one who is in receipt of the communication of some technology. Rest of the people will fall or may be called true and first inventor. So, the definition is not unequivocally provided or defined. It leaves a lot of scope for deliberation and discussion, because there may be a situation where a person who has just imitated somebody's work and may claim himself as true and first inventor, or there may be a situation where a person who has just hired an employee and got his work done from that employee, but he may claim tomorrow the patent protection on the invention created as such by the employee, but invested or the money has been spent by the employer. So, employer may also claim that he is the true and first inventor, though the work has been created originally by the employee. So, the definition leaves a scope of discussion and deliberations and confusion, as it is negatively worded definition excluding two categories of person to be called true and first inventor. Rest of the people can always be called true and first inventor for the purposes of the patent obtainment, as they are eligible for obtaining it. Well friends, if we move ahead in discussing the next step, where to file the patent, we have section 74 in this row. Section 74 talks about the patent office and its branches. Section 74 provides that there shall be a patent office and there shall be some branches of the patent office for the purpose or for the convenience of the applicants to have an access to the patent office in a big country like India. Well friends, if you have a look at the reading of the section and its language, it reads that for purposes of this act there shall be an office which shall be known as the patent office. Further it reads, the central government may by notification in the official gazette specify the name of the patent office. So it's the work or the job of the central government to notify in the gazette the name of the patent office. It means that is their liability to establish the patent office and notify the same. The head office of the patent office shall be at such place as the central government may specify, and for the purpose of facilitating the registration of patents, there may be established at such other places as the central government may think fit branch offices of the patent office. There shall be a seal of the patent office. So these are some of the things to be taken care of by the patent applicant when considering where to file the patent application. So friends, at this juncture, as we know that the true and first inventor who falls under the definition to be called true and first inventor is eligible to file the patent application, or the assignee and the legal representative of the deceased true and first inventor are eligible to file the patent application. The next and important thing that we need to know, where to file the patent office. As made clear by the language of section 74, that the person seeking the patent should approach these patent offices, and as made clear by the language of section 74 that there would be patent office and its branches. Patent office would be called the head office, and its branch offices will also be called the patent offices, but they will never be called the head office. Well friends, if we move further with the question where to file the patent application, we need to see the territorial jurisdiction. I mean, without knowing the territorial jurisdiction, we will not be able to understand which office to be approached by which person residing in which state. I mean, the categorization is clear that residents of these states may approach these patent offices, or residents of some other states will approach that particular patent office near to their state. I will have that list in my slides. I'll show you as to where to go for filing the patent office finally. Well, as shown in this slide, that the patent application shall be filed with the patent office having the appropriate jurisdiction. Territorial jurisdiction of a patent office is decided based on the following. One needs to find out the appropriate jurisdiction. After satisfying that he is eligible for filing the patent, the next question that one should understand, which patent office is the appropriate jurisdiction for him to approach and to access for getting the patent protection. And this categorization or this question of territorial jurisdiction is decided on the following: on the basis of the place of residence of the person, on the basis of the domicile or business of the applicant, or on the basis of the invention actually originated, the place from where the invention actually originated. These are some of the factors, or these are some of the grounds to be seen. These are some of the points to be seen by the person thinking where to go for filing the patent. He must see the place of the invention, the place of residence, business place of the inventor. At all these places, one is allowed to file the patent protection. One can approach the patent office. And if it is a case of the international applicant, some foreign national, in that case he will not be having any place of residence in India. He may not be having the domicile or business established in India. He may not be having the invention actually originated in India, but he seeks the patent in India though he is a foreign applicant. So in that case, he needs to see where his principal place of business is established. He needs to satisfy as to where his principal place of business is situated. At that place, or his office is situated, at that place he can file the patent application, or an appropriate jurisdiction he can identify basically by finding out where the office or the principal place of business is situated for his or her work or for his or her venture. Well, this is a list of the territorial jurisdiction where a person can file the patent application. There are some states falling under the jurisdiction of the Mumbai Patent Office: the state of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Goa, Chhattisgarh, the Union Territories of Daman and Diu, and Dadar and Nagar Haveli. Well, the residents of these states are supposed to file their application in an appropriate jurisdiction, and their appropriate jurisdiction is in the Patent Office of Mumbai. They will be approaching the Mumbai Patent Office for obtaining the patent. So any resident of these states or any person having any business establishment in these states can file their patent application in the Mumbai Patent Office. For the states of Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, National Capital Territory of Delhi and the Union Territory of Chandigarh, for these states, Delhi Patent Office, which is established in Dwarka, is the right forum and the appropriate jurisdiction for obtaining the patent protection. For the states of Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu and the Union Territories of Pondicherry and Lakshadweep, the state of the appropriate office is Chennai Patent Office. They need to approach the Chennai Patent Office for obtaining the patent. For rest of India, I mean for other states, states of Bihar, Odisha, West Bengal, Sikkim, Assam, Meghalaya, Manipur, Tripura and Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh and Union Territory of Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Kolkata is the right forum or the appropriate jurisdiction for obtaining the patent protection. Well friends, I believe it is now pretty clear to all my viewers that there is a scheme of the Patent Acts 1970 which provides people of different states to approach their appropriate jurisdiction by just referring to the list provided therein in the Patent Rules 2003 of the territorial jurisdiction of the patent offices. So accordingly they will have to move and file their patent applications into their respective patent offices possessing the appropriate jurisdiction to receive and entertain their applications. If they will file the patent application in a wrong jurisdiction, in an appropriate jurisdiction, their application may be turned down from that office. It does not mean that their application will be denied of the patent, but as it has not complied the patent procedure properly, it will be remanded to the proper patent office having the appropriate jurisdiction for those state or for that particular state of that particular applicant. Well friends, the next thing that we must understand and we need to know, to my understanding this is one of the cumbersome and the tedious requirement, how to file the patent application. As we have understood who can file, we know now that the true and first inventor, as defined under section 2 of the Patent Act, there are two categories of persons excluded by purview to be called as true and first inventor. They are eligible, I mean all the people not falling under the definition of true and first inventor are eligible to file the patent application if they claim that they are the true and first inventor. A signee of that true and first inventor can file the patent application. The legal representative of the true and first inventor can file the patent application. Then further we have seen where to file, and we have understood by the reading of section 74 that there is a head office of the patent and there are some branches of the patent office, and they have been provided separate jurisdiction respectively. Some states have been categorized to fall under their jurisdiction. For example, as I mentioned that the state of Haryana, Chandigarh and Delhi falls under the jurisdiction of Delhi Patent Office. So the person residing in these states or having any business venture or business establishment in these states will be approaching the Delhi Patent Office for filing the patent application and for obtainment of the patent application. After understanding this, we now need to understand how to file the patent application, which to my understanding is one of the most important requirement. How to file, because in dealing with the question of how to file, there are some subtle information or some subtle requirements to be fulfilled by the person in the terms of filing the form, in the term of complying with the procedure provided under the Patents Act 1970 as well as Patent Rules of 2003. If one fails to do so, then his application may be turned down, his application may be rejected on the non-fulfillment of the proper procedure to be complied by the person for obtaining the patent. Well friends, if you want to understand this, let us see how many types of patent applications are there or can be there. Because the moment if we will be able to make it clear the types of applications or the patent applications to be filed and ideally filed, it will become easier for us to understand how to file these separate or several kinds of applications respectively. Coming to the first kind of patent application, which is an ordinary application, an application which has been filed directly in the Indian Patent Office. I mean ordinary application where the applicant seeks the patent application, follows or complies all the requirements for obtaining the patent and files it to the Indian Patent Office. One type of the patent application. The next type of the patent application is the convention application. Well friends, as the name suggests, this kind of application is basically an application which has taken its birth, which has its origin in the convention between many nations. This application is filed under the Patent Cooperation Treaty, PCT. Patent Cooperation Treaty allows the applicants of different nations to file the convention application in the signatory nations at their ease and convenience. Convention application is an application which comes to or which is filed to patent office of suppose country A by the national of country B or by some foreign national, international applicant. He processes his application through the Patent Cooperation Treaty or through the convention application. So there are some different procedure for filing the convention application vis-a-vis to the ordinary application, because ordinary application goes straight away to the Indian Patent Office, whereas the convention application though originally goes to the patent office, but the procedure for filing it is different. There are some subtle differences and minute differences, we need to distinguish those. The third type of invention, the third type of application to be filed, it is called the PCT application. PCT application, Patent Cooperation Treaty application, filed by the international applicant through the Patent Cooperation Treaty. Through the Patent Cooperation Treaty. The fourth type of the patent application is the division application, which can result from division of a patent application. It's a division application which can result from division of a patent application. We will have a discussion on that. We will understand as to what does this divisional application mean here in this context. The final is the patent of addition, which may be filed subsequent to the filing of an application for patent for an improvement or modification. Whenever the person brings any kind of a improvement in his or her work for which he has already filed the patent application in the concerned patent office, he is allowed to file the patent of addition. A separate application for patent of addition can be filed by him for obtaining the patent. That also we will understand while discussing it further. So there are five major kinds or types of patent application. So one needs to make it very clear, and one needs to first of all demarcate as to what kind of application he or she is supposed to file to the patent office having an appropriate jurisdiction for his application. The moment he is clear that he is eligible to file the patent in an appropriate office, and the application which he is supposed to file would be of any of the kinds mentioned herein, he must proceed ahead with the filing of the patent application. Well friends, in this row, the next thing that we must understand, that is section 7 of the Patent Act, and its threadbare analysis will give us an understanding about the form of application. There are several types of the patent application to be filed by the patent applicant. He needs to be very clear as to what kind of application will be conducive for him, and his application falls under what kind of a category. Once he will be clear about it, he needs to see the form of application, the method of filing of the patent application. Well friends, as per section 7 and its language, every application for a patent shall be for one invention only and shall be made in the prescribed form and filed in the patent office. It is quite clear from the reading of subsection 1 of section 7 that every application for a patent shall be for one invention only. It has to be for one invention only. It means that the patent application filed by the person can never claim two inventions or more than one invention in the claim. So one application for one invention is the rule, and it shall be made in the prescribed form, and the form prescribed not in the Patents Act 2000 of the 1970. The form for the same has been prescribed under the Patent Rules 2003. The another thing that has to be noticed by the language of section 7 subsection 1, that it has to be filed in the patent office. One needs to approach the patent office. Section 74 provides that the central government has the power to notify in the gazette the place or the head office of the patent office and the other branch offices of the patent as per the convenience of the residents of different states. But the thing to be noticed here, that one invention only for one application only for one invention, and the next thing, it has to be in the prescribed form. Well viewers, I would like to show you the prescribed form for filing the patent application or to be filled in properly by the applicant. As shown in this picture, this is the form to be complied and to be filled by the patent applicant. This is the form number 1 of the patent rules 2003 provided therein, which will make it easy for the applicant to approach the patent office. There are some informations which he needs to furnish under this form number 1, as written clearly under this form number 1, that this is in compliance of section 7 of the Patent Acts 1970. The applicant has to provide his name, the nationality and address, then the inventor or the inventors, or if there are 2 applicants, then the names of both the applicants are to be provided. If there are more than 2, the name of all the applicants are to be provided therein. Similarly, if the applicant is, suppose it may be a case where the applicant is just a assignee of the true and first inventor, then he needs to furnish the information about himself as that assignee or as that legal representative. Inventor's name, inventor's nationality, inventor's address is also to be provided. Then title of the invention. Well friends, if you see this third column of this form number 1, this is very important. You need to give a title to your claim. You need to provide a name to your claim. That title has to be, it may be a title available or any existing title, or it can be a title evolved by the inventor himself for the first time, but he is supposed to provide a title to the invention. Then in the 4th column, the address for the correspondence of the applicant or the authorized patent agent in India are to be provided, their telephone numbers and their other contact details are to be furnished. Then if you see or have a look at the 5th column, the priority particulars of the application filed in convention country. It may be a case where the person is filing the convention application and he has filed the application in his or her country earlier, then he needs to provide the priority particulars. I mean, or what does it mean, friends? It means that the person, if has filed the patent application in his country, he gets a priority over other inventors, and he needs to provide the priority particulars, that he filed the patent application on some prior date and now he is filing it in convention country. I mean any country which is a part of the convention for international filing, he can file in the application in that particular country by providing the priority particulars. What is the point of providing and what is the purpose of providing and the benefit of providing the priority particulars? He will be getting the priority over others by his priority particulars if they will be verified or gets testified by the patent office of that particular convention country. In the column number 6, the particulars for filing patent cooperation treaty, national phase application. Well friends, if somebody is filing the patent cooperation treaty application for the international filing, I mean in the beginning itself he is naming some countries where he needs to get the patent protection or thinking of getting the patent protection, then he needs to provide the international application number, international filing date as allotted by the receiving office. In the next column, column number 7, if it is a divisional application, then the one who is an applicant, he needs to furnish the original application number, because divisional application means where he is filing the second application. First application is filed on some earlier date, the next application is filing presently. So the date of filing of the original application is to be provided with the original application number. The 8th particular for filing patent of addition. If it is a patent of addition, application for patent of addition of section 54, under section 54, friends, one is allowed to file the patent for addition or patent of addition if he has done some improvement or addition into his claimed invention. So main application patent number he needs to furnish with the date of filing of the main application. So if you see or have a look at the column number 9, friends, this column number 9 requires some declarations to be attested or signed by the inventor declaring these things. If we read them properly, it reads that the above named inventor is the true and the first inventor for this invention, and declare that the applicant herein is a signee or a legal representative. So he has to furnish and declare. If he declares it and later on if it gets disproved that he is not the true and first inventor, or he is not the right assignee or a legal representative, then by this declaration he may be later on prosecuted for the offence of perjury, or he may be later on prosecuted for providing wrong particulars, or maybe for providing wrong declaration. So it's better to avoid the criminal prosecution and first satisfy yourself whether you are the true and first inventor or the assignee or legal representative, and only then declare of this, only then justify this declaration of section of column number 9. The next thing, declaration by the applicant in the convention country. Similarly, declaration by applicant who is a legal representative. But the third column is important, where he declares so many things, that he is in the possession, I mean the applicant. He may be the true and first inventor, the applicant may be the assignee, the applicant may be the legal representative. So he needs to tell that he is in possession of the above mentioned invention. If he is not in the possession of the above mentioned invention, he cannot claim for the patent protection. The provisional and complete specification relating to the invention is filed with this application. He needs to declare that he has furnished either the provisional or the complete application with this application. The invention as disclosed in the specification uses the biological material from India, and the necessary permission from the competent authority shall be submitted by the applicant before the grant of patent. Well, friends, as far as this third declaration is concerned, it becomes useful only in the cases where the person is seeking a patent protection on something which uses some kind of a biological material obtained by the inventor from India. So he needs to declare that the person who is seeking a patent protection, he has taken the necessary permission from the competent authority, from the National Biological Authority for using that biological material. If he has taken it from India in his or her invention, only then he will be able to get the patent protection. If he forgets to declare it, if he does not declare it willfully, he may not be getting the patent protection. Another thing that he needs to furnish or declare, that there is no lawful ground of objection to the grant of the patent to me. He must declare that there is no lawful ground of objection, that he has perused, he has assessed, gauged his claim or invention on the grounds which are the grounds for objection for grant of the patent. Then the next thing, if he is a signee or legal representative of the true and first inventor, he needs to declare it. The next thing, that the applicant or each of the applications, particulars of which are given in paragraph 5 was in first application in convention country, they need to tell about the details of all these things mentioned or enumerated herein under this column. Let us jump to the next column, column number 10. Following are the attachments with the application. These are some of the attachments to be procured by the applicant to the patent office. Provisional and complete specification he needs to provide. Then complete specification in case of international application, because in the case of the international application there is no need of the provisional specification. In the case of the PCT application, provisional specification is not required to be filed, and if he is furnishing some drawings in support of his application, he needs to procure those drawings as attachment. Then priority documents which are vindicating his priority claim, then translation of priority document, search report, etc., statement undertaking on form 3, power of authority, declaration of inventorship on form number 5, sequence listing in electronic form, and the fee to be paid by him in the form of cash, check or bank draft, and then declare that he is doing or furnishing these information on the belief that the facts and matters stated herein are correct to his understanding. So this form is very important, and this form is the first step in filing of the patent application by the applicant, or getting the patent application done to the patent office. So it's important to provide all the details in a very interesting in a very clear and meticulous manner by the patent applicant. If he does not fulfill these or fill these particulars properly, if he does not fill these particulars properly, he may be denied the patent protection, his claim may be rejected, his form may be asked to be revised by the patent office. So it's better to carefully furnish those informations. Let us come back to the main slide, that section 7 provided that it needs to be filed in a proper form, and form is form number 1 provided under the Patent Rule 2003 for obtaining the patent. It has to be filed in the patent office. The next thing that section 7 provides when it comes to how to file: every international application under the Patent Cooperation Treaty for a patent as may be filed designated in India shall be deemed to be an application under this act if a corresponding application has been filed before the controller in India. Well, section 7(1)(a) makes it clear that in the case of the Patent Cooperation Treaty applications, which are called international applications, that application shall be deemed to be an application under this act, no matter he files it somewhere else. But if he has designated India as one of the country where he seeks to get the patent, then it shall be deemed to be filed in India. Further, the section 7 subsection 1b says the filing date of an application referred to in subsection 1a and its complete specification processed by the patent office as designated office or elected office shall be the international filing date accorded under the Patent Cooperation Treaty. So that would be deemed as the international filing date. I mean the date on which he files the patent application in his country, designating India as one of the country where he seeks the patent protection. Then in that case, the date on which he filed the application in his country will be accorded under the Patent Cooperation Treaty as the international date of the filing, and on the same date or from the same date he will get the priority over the other claimants, other applicants seeking the patent protection on the similar kind of the work. Friends, the further section 7 under subsection 2 reads, where the application is made by virtue of an assignment of the right to apply for a patent for the invention, then he needs to provide the proof of the right to make the application. If he is a assignee or the legal representative filing the patent application, then he needs to provide a proof of the right to make the application. He needs to furnish that some kind of a document or some genuine proof which vindicates his claim that he is the right person, he is the right assignee or legitimate assignee to file the patent application. Next thing that section 7 provides, as far as form of filing the patent is concerned, every application under this section shall state that the applicant is in possession of the invention. Well friends, in consonance of section 7 subsection 3's requirement, form number 1 in one of its columns requires the applicant to declare that he is in the possession of the invention. When he declares that he is in the possession of the invention, that declaration becomes his testimony which is on record and if he denies later that he is not in the possession of the invention, in that case some criminal sanctions can be passed against him, or maybe some sort of action can be initiated against him. So section 7 subsection 3 provides and puts a requirement to declare that the applicant is in possession of the invention, and he needs to name the person claiming to be the true and first inventor. If he is just a signee or a legal representative, he has to furnish the name of the true and first inventor there. If he does not tell, being an assignee, if he is filing the patent application, if he does not tell who is the true and the first inventor, his application will not be of any use. It would be redundant or a useless application, will never see the day of light, will never get the patent protection. So section 7 is quite exhaustive a provision providing as to how to fill the form and what kind of a form is to be filled, where is to be filed by the patent applicant who is eligible to obtain the patent application. If section 7 is complied properly by the applicant, he gets it conveniently. I mean, if other qualifications are met by his claim, he will be getting the patent protection without any kind of a hesitation. Then fourth number, subsection number 4 of 7 reads that every such application shall be accompanied by a provisional or a complete specification. Well, this requirement is also postulated under section 7, that the application for obtaining the patent, not being a conventional application or not being an application filed under the Patent Cooperation Treaty, all other applications are to be accompanied by provisional or complete specification. Well friends, if you see, if you have a look at section 7, section 7 in its ambit provides or postulates so many meticulous requirements to be fulfilled by the person for obtaining the patent. In the very first subsection of section 7, section 7 tells that the patent application will be only for one invention. Then later it tells it has to be filed in the prescribed form as shown by me in my discussion. Later in the same subsection number 1 of section 7, it tells that it has to be addressed to the patent office having an appropriate jurisdiction. Then subsection 1A, 1B of section 7 talks about conventional applications and patent cooperation treaty applications. Section 7 subsection 3, friends, talks about that all these applications filed by the applicant must declare that the applicant is in the possession of the true and first of the invention, and he needs to furnish the name of the true and first inventor. Further, another important requirement that has been posed and postulated under subsection 4 of section 7 is that every application except PCT application and convention application must be accompanied by a provisional and complete specification. If the application is not accompanied by provisional and complete specification, the application will not get the treatment or will not be entertained by the patent office at all. They will be refusing the applicant to grant the patent protection as it has contravened the requirement of section 7 subsection 4, and section 7 subsection 4 uses the word shall, which means it is mandatory for the applicant who is an applicant of the ordinary application, or who is an applicant of the division application, or he is the applicant of the patent for addition application or patent of addition application, to furnish the application or to accompany the application with the provisional and complete specification. If that is not provided, in that case the person will not be getting the patent protection. So when it comes to how to file the patent application, section 7 read along with form number 1 of Patent Rules 2003 is very important, highly indispensable to be understood by the person seeking to obtain the patent. Well friends, another important part and requirement that we need to understand when it comes to provisional and complete specification, that there is a need of filing the application with the prescribed fee, and that prescribed fee is provided in the first schedule, and that fee has to be paid at an appropriate office having an appropriate jurisdiction. Well, friends, I would like to show you the first schedule providing the fee structure for filing different kind of applications. As it is on your slide, it is pretty clear from this schedule number 1, which basically talks about what would be the requisite fee for filing the patent application. Well, friends, this for schedule number 1 contains some of the important headings. It talks about number of entry on what payable, number of the relevant form, and amount of fees paid by the person. If it is a natural person, then the amount is as follows. If he is other than natural person or filing jointly with natural person, then the fee will be different, because see, the entity or the organization does have a more capacity to pay. So let us see what are the kinds of distinctions made under this schedule number 1. Well, friends, these are some of the fee structures available. On filing of a complete specification, this is the fee to be paid by the natural person, 100 and 200 rupees. If it is an entity or an organization, then the fee of 400 or 800 rupees is to be paid. On filing a statement and undertaking under section 8, no fee is to be paid. Then on request for extension of time, in case the person is seeking more time, then 300 per month is the fee to be paid by the person. On filing a declaration as to inventorship, no fee is to be paid. On application for post dating, if you want to get your application post dated, then 500 for a natural person and 2000 is the fee for an organization or an entity or for a joint applicant. On application for deletion of reference, then this is the fee to be paid. So this schedule number 1, friends, is a very exhaustive schedule containing requisite fee to be paid by the applicant in different kinds of procedure opted by him or proceeded by him. In all these procedure, he needs to pay that much of fee to the requisite office, to the stipulated office, I mean to the appropriate office having appropriate jurisdiction. You can refer this first schedule, which is in compliance with rule number 7 of the Patents Rule 2003, and this is in compliance again with the Patents Act 1970. Coming back to our original discussion, friends, this fee has to be paid by the applicant. If this fee is paid by the applicant, he gets the patent protection, and normal fee shall be applicable for applications containing up to 30 pages in specification and up to 10 claims. But if it is more than 30 pages application, it may be a case where the person filing the patent application having say more than 30 pages application and more than 10 claims in his application, then in that case the fee exceeds 30 pages or claims are more than 10, additional fees are to be levied as per the schedule 1 in compliance with rule number 7 as well as Patents Act 1970. Accordingly, he needs to pay the fee by assessing and gauging what is the number of the or what is the minimum number of pages and maximum number of pages he is filing for obtaining the patent. Well, friends, rest of the discussion we will continue tomorrow, and tomorrow we will go ahead with the discussion on how to file, because some of the important aspects of filing of the patent are still not discussed by me because of the time paucity. I'll continue tomorrow. Thank you very much, friends, for patient hearing and listening. Thank you.
So thank you, sir. Thank you so very much. As Mr. Ashwini Sewal himself said, that we would be meeting again tomorrow and we would be discussing on the other aspects also. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.